Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we talk about the top 15 tight end rankings for week 16. You ready? The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas. All right, before we get started on this week's rankings, let's take a look at how we did it last week's rankings. Now, when it comes to tight ends, we always know that it's very finicky. The ball can go. So before we even look at how they did, let's just see, and we'll be able to tell. That wasn't the one. This is who scored. Now, if you look at George Kittle had 2 touchdowns, Darren Waller had 1, and Juwan Johnson had 2. So, what do you think the ball is going to go to? Who do you think is going to be ranked? Let's take a look at that. And there we go. So, this is the rankings. Obviously, George Kittle had 2 touchdowns. Juwan Johnson had 2 touchdowns. And what do you know? They're in the top. They're 1 and 2. So, that's what it means. Now, if you want to look overall, this is what it looks like. So, let's see who got injured. Dallas Goedert got injured and Pat Fryermuth was injured. That means they did not play. And this is what it looks like for the Week 15 rankings. Four of the predictions of who was going to be ranked made it. Can you believe that? That's unbelievable. That's why it's so hard to predict tight ends, because you don't know who's going to score. But that was a terrible week for predictions and rankings. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get set up for the week 16, and we're going to go through it. Now let me just explain. What we're going to do is go through the rankings. We're going to see if we agree or disagree with the rankings that we compiled, and then we're also going to show you some stats to see if they can help you with your own lineups. And if you have any comments, put them in the comment section. This is a live video, so we're paying attention, trying to answer any comments that people have, but this is going to be fairly quick because we only have 15 tight end rankings. So let's do it. At number 1, who do you think? Travis Kelce, home versus Seattle. Now, last week Kelce had 105 yards. He was ranked 7th. So that's why touchdowns is so key when it comes to tight ends. He was 10 for 10 receptions, and he was ranked 7th. At number 2, Mark Andrews, home versus Atlanta. Now, this is what I don't like about rankings. We're putting Mark Andrews in here over and over because he had a stellar start to the season, but he hasn't been doing that of late. And if you looked in the last 5 weeks, he's barely made it. I mean, he's barely making the cut. And again, it's because of this early on, up until about week 6, he was just getting touchdowns. And that's what we keep seeing him in the rankings. And you see, only 4 made it last week. So I think it's a stretch to put Mark Andrews in there again. But he is going against Atlanta. At number 3, George Kittle, home versus Washington. Now, I like Kittle, and even though they have the Purdy as quarterback, Kittle's doing well. Obviously, 2 of the touchdowns went Kittle's way, but they're going against Washington. To say that Kittle can be in the top 3 again, I have no problem with that. He's picking up some speed. At number 4, T.J. Hawkinson, home versus the New York Giants. Now, the question with Hawkinson has always been, can he get in the end zone? And that's what I keep looking for week after week after week. This is what he can do. I think that's when he was with Detroit. You can still see, but he's with Minnesota now. And they're barely using him. But let's look at the touchdowns. 1 touchdown since he's been on Minnesota. And I think that's what worries me, is tight ends depend on touchdowns. They ain't getting the touchdowns. I think Hawkinson being ranked 4 is a stretch. At number 5, Dalton Schultz, home versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia is the best defense, and that's not going to cut it going against the best defense. So I think that's a stretch as well, putting Dalton Schultz that high. So I think Dalton Schultz is a little high. At number 6, you have Taysom Hill at Cleveland. Listen, we all know, let's see, why is... because he's not listed. You know, Taysom Hill, even on my stats, gets all messed up because he doesn't show all these different yards in the different categories. So those are the rankings. I don't have no problem with Taysom Hill being ranked. Obviously, it's always a gamble. At number 7, David Njoku, home versus New Orleans. I think, here he is. He was ranked 28. But let's just look at how he's trending. We were between week 3 and week 7, he was definitely being used. Now it's Watson at quarterback, and he's getting some yards. But I just don't, again, I don't know if that's what it looks like. 28 receiving yards, and this is what overall the team looks like. Again, putting him so high is, I don't see why. So I think that's a stretch to put him at 7. At number 8, Darren Waller at Pittsburgh. I think Waller had a touchdown in week 15. He had 1 receiving touchdown, 48 receiving yards. Now he is going against the Pittsburgh. I think that's fair, just because, the Las Vegas Raiders, they definitely need it. They need to play well, basically for pride. At number 9, Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Freiermuth, here's a player that, he's been one of those steady tight ends all season. This is why it's important for me when I make my decisions. I want to look at how many times they've been in the top 15. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 15. Half the time he's in the top 15. So I predict that he's going to be in the top 15 again. So I have no problem seeing him ranked 9. At number 10, Evan Ingram at the New York Jets. Evan Ingram, that team is hot right now. The question is, can he get into the end zone? And if he's ranked 16 with 62 receiving yards, there's a lot of weapons on that team. I don't think he makes the top 15 next week. I think 10's a stretch for him. At number 11, Greg Dulcich at the Los Angeles Rams. And here's a guy, last week he did not do well, 11 receiving yards. And when you make these decisions, this is why it's important for me to see how he's trending. I have to look at his yards. I want to see it in a quick graph. I want to look at his touchdowns. Again, where is it coming from? When you see somebody ranked in these positions, I think this is a stretch for him as well. At number 12, Gerald Everett at Indianapolis. Now, he got 42 receiving yards just outside there. The Rams, let's look at the Chargers. That's messing me up all the time. I need to switch that graphic. Gerald Everett, they're just not scoring. I think it's going to change. I think it's going to change this week. I think Indianapolis has kind of fallen apart a little bit. I expect Gerald Everett to do fairly well. At 13, Dawson Knox at Chicago. Dawson Knox, 1 receiving touchdown, 98 yards. But what I like about that game is they went to him. He was open. They went to him, and I think that's what they're gonna keep doing, just to mix up that offense. Josh Allen's playing really well. I think Knox is going to do a little bit better than that. At 14, Juwan Johnson at Cleveland. Now, here's the question. Can Juwan Johnson get 2 receiving touchdowns again? Doubt it. If we look all season, let's see how many times. Oh, he has scored twice again. That's why looking at these graphics is so important to me, to see, does he have the potential for 2 touchdowns? He's just not potential for the consistency. So I like him. Just don't expect him to be ranked. I expect him to be outside. At number 15, Okonkwo, I don't even know his name. If you guys want to put in the comments, you can help me. Versus Houston. The thing I like about it, you're going against Houston. So if you have a chance, Houston hasn't been playing well, but look, he's fairly steady in that offense. And I expect him to do just about the same he's done last week. And if you look at what he's done last week, then you could say, just outside, I think he can get in. And I like him here for the top 15. And that is the top 15 tight end rankings for week 16. If you're watching this video, it's because you made the playoffs. You're looking for a couple extra suggestions, so good to you. when I look at these rankings, I always have to look and see how they're trending to help with me, because I don't know it every week, and that's why those graphics are so important. If you have any questions in the comments, put them in the comment section. We'll try to answer it. Otherwise, thanks for watching and good luck. Those fantasy good fellas.